Welcome to Elevate, the podcast where we dissect exceptional achievers who are consistently raising the bar personally and professionally to produce extraordinary results in investment real estate and ultimately in their lives. Now here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here, and I'm blessed and grateful to be sitting here with my friend, Will Baumgardner. Will, how are you, sir?
Doing good.
Just good, man. Can we get to great here? What do you think?
Let's see. Yeah, we can get to great. We'll amp it up.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. So we at least planted the seed, so we're going to get there today. So really appreciate it.
It's Friday the 13th. We survived the full moon. You know, we have, as you listen to this later times, there's, the coronavirus running around, but we're doing all right.
Well, it's
good.
Absolutely.
We're doing great. We're doing great. I'll take great.
Yeah, I mean, you always got to remember the good things that are going on in the midst of craziness, for sure. It's definitely
absolutely
crazy times that we live in, and we're both talking about quarantining ourselves and things like that. But it's great to have technology to be able to have a fantastic conversation here and share that with the world. And so, I just want to thank you again for being on the show.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
And welcome back to Elevate Nation, because it's time to take it to another level. I know I'm ready to do that. I know Will is too. He's ready to go from good to great to extraordinary and beyond. And I want to welcome you back to the show, where our mission is to identify and apply how the best of the best raise the bar personally and professionally to achieve greatness in real estate and beyond. And this is where you learn the mindset, the habits, the routines, systems, tools, strategies, and so much more from those who are elevating to a life without limits, so you can do the same or even more for yourself. And this is a masterclass for leaders and those looking to achieve uncommon results and purposeful outcomes through real estate investing and ultimately in their lives. And we certainly have the master with us today, and Will Baumgardner, in so many different capacities. And I know that for sure because I've known him for so long. But I want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. If you appreciate what we're doing on the show, certainly please, hit that subscribe button. Give us a rating. A 5-star rating would be fantastic. We would certainly appreciate that. A review. What are you getting from the show? What are you applying to your own life, your own business, to create uncommon results? And so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Will. So Will is the Chief of Staff of Venture First, which is a regional financial services firm in Louisville, Kentucky. He has an extensive experience in the e-commerce industry, holding roles where he is ultimately responsible for the finance function of 3 fulfillment centers and over $230 million in operating capital expenses. And let me back up, because I think I actually missed a line here. I'm actually going to start over on your bio. Will is the Chief of Staff of Venture First, which is a regional financial services firm. He has extensive experience in the e-commerce industry, holding roles in finance, strategy, and operations. Will started his career with Zappos.com, a subsidiary of Amazon.com, where he was ultimately responsible for the finance function of 3 fulfillment centers and over $230 million in operating and capital expenses. He has strong expertise in financial planning and analysis, financial modeling, operations, and corporate strategy. Will attended the University of Louisville, where he received his degree in finance. Will currently serves on the board of directors for the U of L Alumni Association and works with other local organizations to strengthen his community. And that's really where Will and I got to know each other. And so with that said, Will, thank you so much for being on the show today. Tell us a little bit more about Will Baumgardner behind the bio as a man.
Yeah, nice. I was sitting here listening to the bio, and I was like, man, I sound kind of boring.
Not at all.
No. Born and raised in Lexington, and then attended school in U of L, which would maybe be somewhat controversy for those folks that don't know the lovely rivalry we have. Had a blast in college and really learned how to lead and work with people, and that I really enjoyed that. Also, serving the analytical side of the brain with finance and numbers. Really found a passion there with mapping things out and modeling, which led to Zappos. Then fast forward from there, served on the kind of transition team where Amazon came in, and it doesn't make sense to have two companies shipping the same thing. So we ultimately decided that Amazon was not the right move. Went out to California, somewhat found myself out there, realized there's a lot more to life than like work, and ended up connecting with a guy named John Shoemate, who started a company, and I ended up moving back to Kentucky to be the first employee of at that time, a cancer patient in a company of 2 people. So worked with John. We kind of grew up Venture First to where it is outside of work. Done a couple of Ironman triathlons, really active and, staying in shape, having fun. This year, we'll get married to my partner of 5 years. Pretty excited about that. That's the gist.
I love it.
Work, love, fun, call it a day. So
work, love, fun, call it a day. That actually says a lot. And, I think one thing, a lot of our listeners, we're pushing the boundaries to every sort of, every limit that, folks said that we had, right. And we're pushing it beyond those limits. And, I think the comment that you made there in terms of there's a lot more to life than work is something that probably speaks to a lot of those folks, right? How would you expand on that thought? I mean, what was that process for you in terms of, you said finding yourself when you went out to California, how did you arrive on that concept yourself?
Yeah. For me, so as a gay man, I defined myself with work for a really long time because I wasn't comfortable with who I was on the inside. When I fresh out of school, was still not honest about who I was. And so I devoted all of that misfit energy, if you will, into being the best possible, at the time, financial analyst that I could. And I think I got so focused on work that I lost sight of, life outside of work. And so for me, moving to California was such a blessing because, kind of got thrown into a world of, there's way more people like me and it is embraced, and holy shit, that person is really successful. And the fact that they're gay doesn't even really matter. It's not even a thought for people out here, which at the time, this was, 7-8 years ago. So, Kentucky was maybe not the most progressive place to be, but certainly not a bad place. And so that was a big turning point in my life of like, okay, if I am comfortable in my own skin and accept who I am, like how much more to life is there outside of just working? And let me be clear, I still really like to work, and we still work hard and a lot, but I don't define myself by that anymore, which was a lot of growth there out in California in a quick amount of time. So
I think there's a lot to be said about defining yourself with work because of maybe other wounds that you may or may not even be aware of. So I think there's a lot to be said with that. And just, the fact that you weren't necessarily deep down comfortable with who you were, and you sort of covered that up with just going after it every single day from a professional standpoint. I mean, so how did that shift, when you actually started to feel more comfortable about who you were as a person, through feeling more accepted? What did that shift do to you?
Hard to put in words. I don't know. And I've never really thought about that, but I think looking back when you are comfortable and you're confident in yourself and you present to the outside world as your authentic self, if anything, it just shed a layer of just shit that I unnecessarily put myself through. every day on the, waking up and trying to present this image of somebody who you're not, in every facet of life. And so I think for me, it was just a weight removed, and like, okay, how awesome and how fortunate am I now that I can show up as my authentic self and pursue what I want to do without having the extra layer of bullshit and trying to fit in. And if anything, it's less exhausting, because by the time I got to that point, it was exhausting. So that was a good shift, just you can be comfortable and be who you are, and life is so much easier.
Yeah. I think there's so much power behind just being authentic to who you are, and not only just feeling better about your life and just enjoying your life more and having more joy and, carefree sort of nature, but also I believe that the energy that you bring to other people also changes. Did you feel that when you started to become more authentic to who you really were?
100%. I mean, I think there's so many facets of an individual, right, that make up their personality. And I think I've always been very upbeat and happy, and in the energy that I bring, I try to, leave, even if it's a room of people or a coffee meeting or whatever it is, leave something better than how you found it. And I think that's, for me, sometimes it's with even just the vibe, right? That, like, the energy that you bring. There's I don't know, I love conversations on podcasts because they go all kinds of places. But there's an individual that used to work up in the coffee shop right above our office, and the energy in the morning as she's slinging coffees was sometimes a little not bright, if we should say. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna break through to this. We're gonna make this. We're gonna change the energy coming out. And I think just showing up day in and day out of like, hey, how's your morning? How's it going? And not being, but again, being authentic, because I think that to go through life and not enjoy interactions or have that positive energy. You certainly can't change somebody's mindset, but you can show up how you present. And I think, and I'm happy to say that, now it's probably one of my favorite people. We chit chat all the time, and it's been a great change. But I don't know. Yeah, just the energy that you bring, you can show up and bring something different and leave that. I think that's something that you can do. So
I think it's really cool that anybody listening to this show, they may know deep down, it's like, man, I'm not really showing up as my authentic self in whatever way it is. And to realize that how much freedom and how much joy and how much more success potentially is on the other side of just releasing that and just showing up who you are without any qualms. Because look, there's probably somebody else who's got a similar story or a similar, feeling towards, maybe not wanting to be authentic in whatever way that is. So I just think that, I really appreciate you sharing that. It's huge.
Can be I mean, again, I think I said there's so many different facets to somebody's personality and your identity as an individual. And I think one of the things that's very prevalent is in work, right? I mean, we were talking about work, but being able to be your true self at work, or leveraging your strengths, right? This is something I am not a master at, and still trying to figure out of how do I bring to the table my strengths and what that helps the organization, what my strengths can help drive the organization forward. But then on the flip side of that, being comfortable in knowing that, okay, this is not one of my strengths, and I need to ask for help, or I need to find somebody else to work on this, or maybe I need to get into a different role. So I think there's tons of different things about being authentic and showing up, all kinds of different areas of life. So
for sure. Yeah. And just having self-awareness for what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and starting to identify, well, what do I need to ask for help on? Right. And, one of the ways that you and I really got to know each other is really like kind of stubbing our toe and bumping our head and becoming leaders, right, in an organization in college, right, as fraternity men. And it's funny to even think back on, as in terms of, it seems like such a silly thing to even say, but I know that I learned so much in that sort of capacity, and still drawing experiences as, being a president of a fraternity, and you did it before me. But the reason why I bring that up is because I think there's so much that we can talk about in terms of leadership. But before we dive into that, I'd love to know, was there a moment in your life where you just said, like, you know what, I'm going to be uncommon. I'm going to, do whatever I can to live a great life, to be the highest version of myself? Because you're an uncommon type of an individual. I mean, you've always struck me to be that way. Was it because you were maybe to a certain degree inauthentic for a while and kind of hiding that identity, or was there something else? And I don't know, maybe I'm going down too many paths and making too many assumptions, but just curious.
Well, hey, thank you for the comment of that.
Absolutely. $20, you can send that over.
Nice referral fees.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's funny. I've never thought of myself as uncommon. But now, I guess early on in life, and a couple of different things that come to mind with that question. So I remember in college working at the Kentucky State Fair, slinging some corn dogs for a family friend who I actually ended up last year, not even a year ago, was my last year because we ended up selling the booth. But it was 10 days out of the year. You're out at a concession stand selling corn dogs, lemonade, and Cokes, right? And a family friend of ours was the owner of the booth. And so he had asked my older brother had worked for Harold for a couple years before. And so it was just kind of for me, it was like, a great way to make some cash getting ready for the school year. And I remember this conversation so vividly because it was a crazy, crazy Friday night or Friday day. And I was supposed to be off at 5 for the next shift. And I was like, oh, hey, Harold, like, if I need to, like, I'm happy to stay and help because I know it's been nuts. And he looked at me and he was like, go home because I'm going to need you tomorrow. But I know that you would stay. And I kind of looked at him and he was like, you don't understand this yet. He was like, but you work hard and you like to work hard. Not everybody feels that way. And I was like, okay, I mean, whatever. And it just went totally over my head because I was just how I like to work. Like I find great joy and satisfaction in a hard day's work. And so now having gone through the fraternity experience and, managed, trying to manage some fraternity men, and then, early on as a young manager at Zappos and Amazon and with Venture First, we have 30 employees now. And so, not all of them that started with us are still with us. And so that I realized that was uncommon. And, what started that drive, I think is honestly like just my parents. Like I was afraid to not work hard because I was afraid to disappoint them. So call that good old Catholic guilt from my mother. But then I think as I've gotten older, I see what the other side of discomfort looks like. And that's where you live. And this podcast is coming at such a good time because I think the last couple months of work have just been hard, very hard. And so it's always funny when you come up for air a little bit and talk about what you do and not just do it. You're like, oh yeah, we are doing hard stuff. Like I should be tired. But that's where the magic happens. And, I think another great example of this personally was back in October. We went with a couple of folks from work, and then there was a group of 8 of us that ended up hiking Kilimanjaro, and all 8 of us summited, which not everybody does. And there was a moment. So I had another goal for last year to have a PR and a half Ironman, and but the goal was not so much the time; it was to commit to the consistency that leads to the time. And so I was, for the first time, Jacob, my partner, was like, impressed that I was waking up and hitting all my workouts, because I very much had never done that. So I was in pretty good shape, and it's the last day we're on the attempt to summit. And I remember being like, oh shit, like I'm going to have to call a helicopter to come get me off the side of this mountain. Like I can't take another freaking step. And I sat with that for a while but kept taking steps. And then like the sun came up. You start your summit at midnight, so you summit at like 7 a.m. in the morning. And like, if I had given up in that little bit of moment, then the whole rest of the trip, like you would have missed all of that. And so I think, for me, I love working hard because that brings discomfort. But on the other side of that, I think is where, I don't want to say life begins. That sounds very cliche, but it's where experiencers are made, and things that, I'll remember that day for a lifetime. Well, nobody said that after a really easy day of anything. Right. So, I just think I enjoy working hard. It's probably why I got into triathlons, because I'm whatever the appropriate term for love suffering. But you, on the other side of it, life is awesome.
Are you someone who is looking to seriously elevate your life this year? I mean, now, this year, 2020, because I want to let you know that I am currently opening up a few coaching spots for people like you who want to close the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And I want to invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. Again, that's coachwithtyler.com. I have to tell you, this is not for everyone. This is only for those who are defiantly committed, those who are decisive, those who are coachable, those who are resourceful. They're willing to do whatever it takes. They're willing to sacrifice time, energy, and invest resources into themselves to get to where they want to be, to live life at the highest level, and to elevate to a life without limits, exactly what we talk about on this show. If that is you, I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. Again, that's coachwithtyler.com.
So,
I mean, I kid you not, I had chills when you said that that's where the magic happens, the other side of discomfort. The other side of discomfort is where the magic happens. And I literally wrote it down that I got chills when you said that, because I know it's true. And, it's really interesting because, when your head's down, I don't know about you, but I still complain about the hard work. I still do. I mean, within my own head and externally, I know you and I have had conversations about this.
Yes.
It's like, man, things suck right now, or whatever it is. But then when you kind of come up for air and you start to see how we actually have made some progress, when it feels like actually you haven't, every day in and day out, it's like we're going backwards, we're failing, I'm screwing up, I have no clue what I'm doing. But it is this weird thing and this weird satisfaction about, kind of going beyond that discomfort and becoming something more. That's what strikes me about you too, is that not only do you work hard professionally and just revel in that, and, but you do it personally as well, whether it's through triathlons or, so many different things, whether you're a volunteer for a different organization. I mean, you're always pushing the limits. It's like you got brought into it, maybe to kind of hide a little bit of who you truly were as a person, or maybe kind of hide your own psyche from who you thought you shouldn't be as a person. But then it took you in this path that really kind of became like your identity. Your identity now is a hardworking individual who then gets to enjoy the magic on the other side. Would you agree with that? Maybe I'm making an assumption there.
No. I think that, I think it's so interesting with, well, one of the things that you see in a phrase that's really popular is like, it gets better, right? Especially with, gay youth that have above average suicide rates and homelessness and all this. And I have never made the connection of working hard through like my youth to get to this point now, but it's a good parallel. And I think that, I'm a sucker for like a good, like sappy TV show, movie, whatever, where like the kid that gets picked on in high school then becomes like the powerful CEO or whatever it is. But I think it's true for a reason, I mean, I think you don't understand who you are as a person until you experience and get through some type of adversity. So no, to draw that parallel, I've never thought about that, but kind of makes sense.
Super interesting. So are you the type of person who seeks adversity and, like the whole concept of the obstacle is the way or what have you, or if not, or if so, what other, things, types of adversity have you faced otherwise, over the past few years?
Yeah. I very much think that the obstacle is the way. And, I have a planner that has all kinds of fun little, quotes to get you going every day, but, do one hard thing every day. And I mean, I think that's another thing or motto that I love. That's why I love once I do get out of bed in the morning, which some days I'm not going to lie, is a struggle more than others. I'm not that person that's like, woo, 5 a.m., let me pop out of bed and roll. But no, I love having like a hard workout in the morning or something to where you feel accomplished and get going. And I think that, usually the thing that you don't want to do, like this is really with me in business right now with the company and kind of my role of with people and kind of the day-to-day operations. Like the thing that makes you most uncomfortable and that you don't want to do the most is probably the thing that you should do. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a pretty guiding principle that I've used when, when it's gotten tough. So, I think that adversity shows you a path forward. And, that's not to say that I don't love like a nice, easy Saturday morning kind of thing. But I think the adversity is a good way to show you it's telling you you should focus on that for some reason. So
yeah, well, and I kind of feel like the nice easy Saturday morning is so much nicer when you've faced that adversity throughout the week and you've done the one hard thing every day or however many hard things it may be. I don't know about you, but I just feel behind if I'm just relaxing and if I'm enjoying that nice easy Saturday morning, if I didn't sort of earn that or whatever it may be. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah. No, makes sense.
Yeah. So talk to me about what you guys are doing with Venture First. I mean, obviously you guys are pushing the limits and doing big things. So what's the uncomfortable thing right now with Venture First?
If there was only one hard thing to do every day, I'd be a really happy camper. No. So Venture First, so John Shoemates, our CEO founder, started it really as a valuation group. And I use the word group lightly because it was just him in a hospital bed as he fought lymphoma. And so John grew the book of business to more than he could service it, hired me as a valuation analyst. But I saw the opportunity and John helped paint that picture to come in and build a company. And so Venture First, we've gone from, and we continue to do valuation work. I love telling people that two things: if I'm the smartest person in the room or at the table, I'm at the wrong table. And so we were able to go out and find talent that was way better at us than doing valuations, and bring them in and equip them to do their job well, which freed us up to focus on kind of what we call now CFO services. So venture first services firm, valuations, CFO service. So we help growing companies with accounting, finance, strategic financial leadership that you would have as a CFO. Through that work, we got to know a lot of investors in these high growth companies, mainly, a lot of high net worth individuals, a couple of institutional investors realized that there was a need for service to investors as well. And so that's kind of where we're at now is with Venture First. Our goal is to build an ecosystem of services around that entrepreneur that is fostering innovation. And that could be innovation in any industry facet. But, I think if you talk to anybody at Venture First, they believe that innovation is what drives us forward. And, funny, it goes on, which is hard, right, on the adversity side. Mm-hmm. So if we can help build an ecosystem of services to foster that growth and breakthroughs faster, that's what we want to do. So on the client side, have services around that. On the investor side, looking at ways to better connect folks. And so we've set up a couple of funds of our own, which has been exciting. So there's a mass self-storage fund. We have a whiskey lending fund. So we were CFO and continue to be CFO for a couple distilleries. They're having very hard time getting just working capital. So banks super happy to loan for construction or equipment, right? Because they can take that collateral back. But hey, I just need more money to put more juice in the barrel. They were having to sell equity, which is very expensive in the long run. So in service to kind of both sides, this was our first move with investors that, hey, I want to park some capital in something maybe a little different. So an alternative investment. Hey, client that needs cash, well, we can make that happen. So we launched a whiskey lending fund. And then what's hard now, we are working on launching our own venture fund. So to TBD, but have some soft commitments, and we're really excited to be able to kind of have that next evolution of the business.
Well, the theme of our conversation so far has really been adversity. And I love the thought, that innovation is what drives your company forward, and being innovative is really another adversity seeking sort of, tactic or action or behavior. And so, I love the thought about, all right, we weren't able to identify, debt opportunities for bourbon companies, on a large scale. And so the innovative thought of, let's create a fund where investors are looking for opportunities, especially in this current marketplace. Folks are looking to place capital, and what better way to capitalize on the, bourbonism and the boom of bourbon global growth there. And these companies are having a practical problem. So, innovation doesn't always have to be, Elon Musk, let's colonize Mars. Yep. So I think it's a great thought of like, there's how many other innovative thoughts can you apply to what you're doing? So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's just trying to find a new way to solve a problem, right? I mean, that's all we're doing. And I think, our role in that is, building that ecosystem and nurturing it and fostering it to make those things happen faster. So, yeah.
So as a leader yourself, you're growing, you're pushing, this company as well. Obviously you're doing innovative things in terms of facilitating an ecosystem in the organization itself. You've got to build that infrastructure, right? So talk to me about, how does that look as a leader of a rapidly growing organization? I mean, what have you had to develop yourself in terms of a leader?
A lot of patience. to go from, 2 people to 30, I think there's a thing in the tech world called developer fatigue, right? So these developers will go out and they'll build this beautiful website, system, app, whatever it is. And almost by the time that they're done, then there's like this whole round of changes that need to happen. And they're like, oh, but my baby, I just launched it. It's beautiful. Well, like, no, your baby's ugly because this is now old and we need to do this. And so it's just that constant rebuilding. And I think that, in a team that goes from 2 to 4 to 10 to 30, certainly people have done that faster than we have. But I think one of the big challenges is the systems and the processes in place that worked for even 10 people do not work for 30 people. And that worked for an office in one city do not work for an office in 5 cities. So, that's been a big challenge. I think ways that we've tried to get around that is one of our core values is instilling clarity. And I think as an employer, if you're, my Kentucky came out right there. As an employer, I think one of your biggest duties is to help people feel equipped for the job that they're doing and give them clear guidance on the job they need to do. We don't do this perfectly by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we've realized that that's really a big need, that we need to have some kind of system in place. And I know you're a big reader. You haven't hit Measure What Matters with
I've not, no.
Jim Dewar.
Jim Dewar?
Jim Dewar. And it's the OKR system. So objective and then key results. So kind of we once a quarter take the company and say, okay, what are our top goals as an organization? And set an objective for that. So, one of ours was to shift the paradigm in the whiskey market by launching a debt fund, right? Well, that sounds really cool, right? That's a big, squishy, lofty objective. How do you know if you've shifted the paradigm? So then that's where the key results come into play. And so you set specific, all those great things of a goal, time bound, actionable, right? Key results that are going to happen in the next 90 days that reinforce that objective. And so we go through once a quarter, set our company objectives, then set the group objectives for each of the different groups, and then individuals go and set their objectives and key results that all kind of funnel up towards the top. And I think that it helps with people knowing, where to row, how hard they need to row, when can they stop, all that good stuff in terms of their individual contribution. But for a rapidly growing company, it also helps folks on a daily basis with priority. And okay, I'm being asked to do 5 different things. Well, one of these very clearly influences our top company objective. I should probably pick that one first over this other stuff. So I think, young startups, growing companies, prioritization is such an issue. And so again, it sounds like we have it all figured out and everybody just works great, but it's not the case. But at least it gets us going in the right direction. So that's been one of the larger kind of initiatives that we've launched to help with that.
Yeah, I think it's huge to instill clarity, as you mentioned. One thing I think that, in my opinion, the most crucial, thing that you need to do as an organization is communicate properly. And I think, so many people are not communicating, well, what is the priority and what is the top objective and what's our mission and what are we doing? So people are running around like chickens with their head cut off. So taking time in instilling clarity in terms of what your own vision is, and then instilling clarity with others that are becoming a part of your organization and saying, here's how you can prioritize, and here's an easy, sort of concept in terms of directing your own behavior is huge. So talk to me about communication. I mean, are you guys working with your individual employees on a 90-day kind of basis and saying, hey, look, let's work together on instilling your own sort of objectives and here's what you're looking to accomplish, or how are you working towards that?
Yeah. Always a work in progress. And again, just 18 months ago, we could all gather in one conference room and have an all hands. And now we have to like squabble together in a big open area, and it's very awkward. But I think what we strive for is a communication rhythm. So with that quarterly all hands or quarterly setting of goals, we do an all hands meeting. We take that each month as well. And so 3 all hands in a quarter, where it's a time to do exactly what you said, come back to some of those larger operational questions, right? Like, why do we exist? How do we win? Who does what? What's important right now? So it's helpful to level set those even each month, right, within the same quarter. And then what we've strived for this quarter is having an individual, just a weekly one-on-one with your employees and your direct supervisor, of a check-in on, hey, how you're doing, but then also coming back to those individual goals and just touching them once a week. We had a couple of employees that recently started their own company, and Venture First was an investor in that company. We were really excited for them. It actually fits great into the ecosystem of what we're trying to build. But that was some of their biggest feedback in the exit interview is, that we actually don't do that very well, and provide that clarity to our internal stakeholders as much as our external stakeholders and clients. So that was was very helpful to kind of, have that magnifying glass on yourself of, crap, all right, we gotta do better here. So
yeah, facing the brutal facts, right?
Yeah.
Of saying, you know what, we're not great at this, but we can improve on that. I love the attitude of, you know what, this is our focus now. It's instilling clarity, because what a great feedback to get. So it doesn't feel good, but it's necessary.
Yeah, no, absolutely necessary. And I was thankful, as we look at building a company and what does our company culture look like and our identity. I was very happy that, I've taken a couple of exit interviews and you just check some boxes and walk away. Right.
Yeah.
And so the fact that our employees were invested so much in Venture First that they took the time to do that and, put their neck out a little bit and gave us some open and honest feedback. I was very thankful to see that they felt comfortable doing that. So
that's awesome. So as a leader, one of the things that I think is so important is to, fill up your own cup, right? How do you invest in yourself? How do you create, your own identity, that can serve and lead others and bring people to, the magic beyond the, the discomfort. So how are you investing in yourself these days, Will?
Well, great question. I know that I need to do that. I've done a kind of a bad job of it here of late. And in my personality and I'm very much high highs and low lows. So I think what I am learning to do is still want to have high highs, mitigate the low lows, and just be a little more consistent. So I used to do things like, just work lights out and then like take a week vacation and completely shut it off. And high, low, right? Like, so played like, okay, well that doesn't work. So I think one of the more recent vacations I set like, okay, I'm going to work because I want to. So let's just free yourself of that obligation of like, oh, you're on vacation. You must shut off your phone and do not think about work for a whole week. Let's be real. So I set time on like, okay, I'm going to work for 2 hours in the morning because I want to. I enjoy it. And I like to stay connected. And I think I came back refreshed from that vacation more than anyone before. So for me, it's learning when I'm reaching that thermometer a little quicker. of, okay, it's time to step back, take a little break. People say, self-care or self-love is a buzzword, which I'm very happy that people are talking about that. So I think for me, how do I manage that? It's just getting a better read of, okay, when am I running too hot? I mean, just like a car, and, go take a little break, or, for me, it's go, when I was training, I would get too focused on something. So like go for a bike ride and don't time it. Insane, right? Like, how dare I not have heart rate metrics and hit every lap? And like, no, like just go ride your bike and enjoy it. Like, so trying to make sure that I weave things like that in has been really important. And another piece of it for me is learning to turn off the emotional side of my brain, because I've also learned, with at work, John and I, our CEO, we're in a relationship. We're like an old married couple, and we can hit each other's buttons and send each other through the roof very quickly. And so learning how to just know, okay, this is the situation. This is what's likely going to happen. I'm going to feel this way. Like, I know that I'm going to my heart rate's going to elevate. I'm going to get sweaty. I'm going to be defensive and want to strike back. Know that coming into it. Don't let that emotional side of my brain amp it all the way up to 10. Let that feeling pass, and then approach with the thinking side. And it's really hard, but I have seen it a couple times throughout, and that's also helped. And again, it goes back to that. I don't have that instant like up to 10, and then I come home and work is ridiculous, blah, 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 low complaint. Like, no, like, oh, this is coming. Okay, I'm pissed. It's going to pass. All right, time to approach the problem. So
I think there's so much value in what you just said in terms of being aware of the
my
potential.
Therapist would be happy you said that, because it takes a village to get that. Yeah.
Well, it's huge though. I mean, I think the most successful entrepreneurs and most successful investors have an understanding that a situation is causing their emotions to go in a certain direction. They don't have to get into this negative spiral and follow that and allow that to continue to fester and become more and more and more. And those are the folks that, you know what, we got the coronavirus, people are self-quarantining, businesses are shutting down, people are going crazy. So the matter is, okay, am I fearful? Am I worried? Is this going to ruin my life? Or is this something, another circumstance that we can just take a deep breath, we can act accordingly. It's not easy, of course, but it's training. I think you have to train yourself, in my opinion, when the sun is shining. It's like, repair the roof when it's sunny. You have to build on this. I fully believe. So I think there's a ton of value in what you're talking about.
I love it. And it is training. I mean, the first time we were talking about this with my therapist, I was like, you are nuts. Like, there's no way that I'm just going to let this thing happen and not react. But once you learn that, okay, whatever that circumstance may be, it's going to happen, right? Like, accept it. And the only thing that you can do as an individual to protect yourself is to control how you react to it, because that's all you can control, right? And I think that kind of that stoic mindset of your emotion to a situation is what you can control. You could not control what's going to happen. But yeah, you can certainly control not amping yourself all the way up and letting it happen, and then move forward the best way you can. So, but it's hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the greatest growth processes that you learn in business and life, whatever. I think business and growing a business and growing a real estate portfolio and all these things is like the greatest self-growth discovery process, because it requires you to do things like this. Because,
Wow.
most of us who are, wired to be drivers and type A, and we want to do anything we can to create, greatness and, whatever it is, it's hard for us to accept the fact that circumstances are what they are. And so the concept there of accept and then control how I react. How about I control how I react and then change the circumstances? Well, actually, the thought behind it is, the paradox is that if you accept the circumstances and you control how you react, you can actually control the circumstances further in the future, much better, much more effectively. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think it's, running a business, growing a portfolio. I mean, whatever it is, you're gonna face challenges. And I
Yep.
think it's, how do you tackle them? How do you let that affect you? And if you, I think if you are not in this emotional heightened sense, then you make better decisions.
Yes.
So yeah,
That's what it's all
but
about.
it's
Making
hard.
It's so hard, but it's worth it. Making better
Yeah.
decisions is so worth it, because they compound over time. And that's when, you really see the magic behind or beyond the discomfort is really through effective decision making and stacking all this on top of each other. So this is a ton of
Yeah.
fun, Will. I'm really enjoying this. I want to be respectful of your time and transition into our rapid fire sections, the rare air questionnaire, because you are
Right.
Mr. Mount Kilimanjaro climber over there, scaling mountaintops left and right across the planet. So we're going to continue to push the bounds here. And you talked a little bit about books. I'd be curious to know, what are 2 or 3 of the most impactful books that you've read?
I saw this on the pre-questionnaire, and you had to think about it. So I will say the first one, I'm actually reading it right now, but The Daily Stoic. I don't know if you've read that or not, but just that nice little nugget for me each morning of ideas behind the Stoic mindset, I think has been really helpful. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was super impactful of like, okay, there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to kind of think about wealth. I think if I would go way back, like, I just love this. And some people have talked about this, a mindset of abundance and like the giving tree, like growing up, like that book was just so, it's a little childhood book that just sticks with you. But like, and I think that that's really important for, as we, go down this, I don't want to get too crazy. Like, but I feel like our world with social media and influencers and all this, it's kind of all about me. And I think to be uncommon is to have that mindset of, help others first, and then good things are going to come. So
that's awesome.
I like that book. It's a good book.
Yeah, man. I would have never thought about that. I actually remember reading that as a kid, and who knows, man, the little seeds that are planted in your mind through reading a book like The Giving Tree. That's awesome. That's awesome. And The Daily Stoic is Ryan Holiday. Of course, we'll put links in the show notes to all these books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I would imagine everybody listening knows.
That's probably an easy one.
Yeah, that certainly is a game changer. It's a mindset shifter. So what aside from what we've talked about today, what would you say the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis would be?
I think just similar to what we talked about, but just showing up. I think showing up and being present, I think is a way that any individual right now can elevate their life, right? Whether that is sitting at couch at home with your partner and not being on the phone and being there for them, even if it's like watching TV, whether it's being in a meeting and actually paying attention, or, coming on a show and giving you your undivided attention. I think that showing up and giving somebody your focus and your attention is uncommon these days, and it helps elevate your life.
Yeah, I had this conversation with somebody literally yesterday, and we both agreed that presence is a superpower, especially in today's day and age. I mean, we've got so many things coming at us in so many different directions. If you can be present where you are, it's not an easy thing to do, but how worthwhile is that, That's awesome. So what's the biggest way that you elevate others around you?
I think I go back to trying to instill in people that they should leave something better than where they found it. And whether that be the fraternity that we came into, right? Work hard to make it better. Whether it's the business, whether it's on the mountain and bending down and picking up a piece of trash that's not yours. So I think, giving people that mindset of, hey, let's show up and make this place better than where you found it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And especially when no one's looking, when there's nothing to be gained.
Yeah.
What a concept to be able to kind of, really create something that you can be proud of and create a character that you can be proud of. And man, this has been a ton of fun, Will. I really appreciate you taking time. And any parting thoughts or words of wisdom for Elevate Nation?
Keep doing what you all are doing. I think that just by coming and listening to shows that encourage you to think in a positive mindset and that you have the ability to do these things, keep doing what you're doing. Rock it out. Let's have some good ripples throughout the world, because we need it. So. Yeah,
feed your mind with positive information. Guard the gates of your mind from the negativity, the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty. And, you have everything within you to do anything you want. And Will, you certainly have showed us that today, man. Really, really appreciate it. It's been so much fun to have you on the show. What's the best way for Elevate Nation to learn more about you and what you're doing at Venture First?
I'm going to probably be real old school and throw out the venturefirst.com website.
If that's old school, what year are you living in?
So again, a lot of what I do is work still. So, you can find me that way, on Instagram, all that good stuff, and reach out. Happy to answer questions.
You can find Will on Instagram, WLB_859. So take a look there, find him, follow him, cheer him on his next Ironman, because I know he's doing big things there. And
that's right.
And obviously we'll be looking out for the next innovative thought from you and Venture First. But I want to encourage Elevate Nation to re-listen to this episode, because there's so much there. And I know that we've just, it was really kind of spontaneous in our discussion today, but I know I learned a lot, and there's many distinctions that I have written down here. So I'd encourage you to take notes, listen to it again, share this with someone else, because I say it time and time again, but the teacher is who learns the most. And when you teach to someone else, it really anchors into your own understanding, and you can create something great in your life. But don't forget to take massive action, because that's what it's really all about. Your ideas are only potential power. Knowledge is only potential power, but action is really where it the magic happens, and pushing past that discomfort is where that magic happens. So with that said, Will, thanks again for being on the show. Really, really appreciate you taking time.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Elevate Nation, we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit tylerchesser.com.